Browns yesterday. The latest round of COVID-19 testing produced no new positive results. Here's what their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, had to say yesterday. Take a listen.
They understand that we have a job to do, and they're excited to do that. So they know that this thing's not stopping for me or anybody. So they're full speed ahead. It's the next person up. So it doesn't change regardless of who's on the sideline.
Adam Schefter is with us this morning, and as always, working hard before the sun even comes up. Good morning, Shefty. What is the latest you can tell us out of Cleveland?
Well, that was a positive step. Assuming there are no more positive tests in Cleveland, the game will go on as scheduled on Sunday night. And there were no positives, as you mentioned yesterday. Now, Kevin Stefanski is out for the game, as are a number of players. And just think about this. The Cleveland Browns are playing their biggest game in 18 years, their first playoff game since 2002. And in that game, remarkably enough, they will be without their head coach. They will be without a couple of assistant coaches. They will be without a handful of players. And they have struggled to contain this virus that goes back to when they played your New York Jets and they lost their entire wide receiver crew before that game in a game they could not find a way to win. And now you feel bad for a team like this. Number one, you hope that everybody involved is physically okay. But beyond that, this is something that this team, this organization, these individuals have worked for all year, throughout their careers. Their longest tenured player is Joel Bitonio. A playoff appearance cannot mean any more than it would to him, and he can't play in the game because he's tested positive and is on the list.
Yeah, and I always think of the fans. The fans in that city have waited 18 years for this, and now this is the way their team goes in. But they obviously will not give up. I saw something yesterday, Shefty, I thought was interesting. Your friend and mine, Chris Mortensen, was tweeting about it. The idea that Kevin Stefanski cannot have any communication with the team during the game and all of that. The National Football League, those are rules that are in place for entirely other reasons, but there will be no adjustment in that, right? Stefanski will have no bearing on the game Sunday night.
No, he can take part in all the meetings. He can help prep the team. But once the game begins, Kevin Stefanski will have as much involvement in that game as you or I, Greeny. He will be watching his team, the team that he coached, helplessly, presumably in his house in Cleveland. And it just seems so strange and surreal and befitting of the year that everybody's experienced. But no, he is not allowed to take part. Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, will call the plays for the Cleveland Browns, and that is a loss because Kevin Stefanski, one of his great strengths is his ability to attack a defense, to call a game, to establish the run game the way the Browns have, and they will not have that, and they will have to get used to the adjustment of changing play callers to Alex Van Pelt.
No question, and the chemistry that he has with Baker Mayfield, we talked about that at length here yesterday. Now, the team that they play is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Ben Roethlisberger is one of 6 quarterbacks this postseason that has previously won the Super Bowl. This is the second time there have been that many previous winners in a single postseason. You will notice Brady, Rodgers, Big Ben were there both of the years that it happened. Here was Ben with some thoughts yesterday.
I think every player should approach this playoff game like it could be their last playoff game ever. I know I am because nothing's guaranteed in this game or this world. All the old guys. I know you didn't want to use those words, but I'll say it for you. It's cool. I mean, it's fun to be a part of it with them. I'm hoping that it's not one and done. You know, we're going to give everything we have so that I can be the last old man standing, maybe.
And so we get up this morning with Domonique Foxworth and Damian Woody as well. Good morning, guys. And Nick, let me start with you. Let's talk about the pressure that's on Big Ben here. This is a team that does not run the football practically at all. 83% of their yards the last 5 weeks have come through the passing game. They're now playing a game in which they are heavily favored based in part on Cleveland losing its coach and other things. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Roethlisberger here. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that all the way. Like, I understand what you're saying. They're going to have to throw the ball and have an effective passing game because their rushing game is pretty much non-existent. But they don't really ask that much of Ben. When you think of Ben Roethlisberger in his prime, it's holding on to the ball for a long time, sometimes shaking off giant defensive ends so he can throw deep balls down the field to those seemingly revolving doors of outstanding receivers that they have there. That's not the Ben we have this year. He has as little time in the pocket as anyone. No one gets rid of the ball more quickly this season than Ben Roethlisberger. So I think there's pressure on him to make good decisions, but there's not that much pressure on him to be the Ben Roethlisberger of old that puts this team on his back on occasion when they need him to do so.
They rested him last week. Damian Woody, what do you expect from Roethlisberger Sunday night against a Browns defense that has struggled defending the pass?
Yeah, listen, I think Dominique hit it on the head. Nobody's gotten the ball out quicker than Big Ben of all the quarterbacks in the National Football League, and it's going to put a premium on the Cleveland Browns, particularly their back seven, to be able to make tackles. Because if there's one thing that we know about the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers, is they can really make yards after the catch. And so we know that the Cleveland Browns, Olivier Vernon is out for the year with the Achilles injury, so that's another huge blow against that Cleveland defense. So Myles Garrett and company, they're going to have to do their best job as possible to try to get to Big Ben. But again, Ben gets that ball out really, really quickly.
And D. Wood, may I just say, and Cindy, can we take the one shot of him again? This, I believe, is the first time we're seeing this room in your clearly spectacular house, and I'm completely consumed by it. The piano is spectacular, the art. You just need to have us to your house for a tour at some point. I've seen now, I feel like 4 different rooms in your house during this pandemic, and every one of them is more spectacular than the previous.
Yeah. Well, Green, I tell you what, man. When we get past this pandemic, man, maybe we do the show. Get up from here, maybe. I got some
on location.
That's a date. We will be there for sure, and hopefully there won't be a delay. You could drive a truck through while we do that. In the meantime, Sheffy, let me come to you on this. Ben Roethlisberger has $41 million in his contract next year, so it did get me to thinking. Whenever this thing ends for them, let's just use Sunday night as a possibility. Could we be seeing the last games of Ben Roethlisberger in a Steeler uniform?
No, Greeny, he fully intends to come back and play next year. And again, Pittsburgh has always gone to him when it needed cap relief, and I would imagine that would be the same situation again now. But I saw that caption there, Ben Roethlisberger under contract, under pressure. Look, I think he, at this stage of his career, has an understanding and an appreciation, as he talked about, that he doesn't know that he will ever get an opportunity like this ever again. Last year, he was knocked out for the year with an elbow injury. This year, the team struggled and limped towards the finish line. Next year, he will be another year older. He fully intends to play next year. That is his plan. But who's to say that his performance at his age isn't going to drop off? We've already seen the quarterbacks from his draft class. Eli Manning's retired. There's a chance that Phillip Rivers is in his final playoff round right here. And so who knows how many more opportunities Ben Roethlisberger will get at the postseason. Who knows if this will be the last time that he advances to the postseason. And I think he's wise enough to recognize that these opportunities are few and far between. They're limited, and this could be it for him right here.
Feels like a changing of the guard there in Pittsburgh, no question. Okay, that's where it begins. Our next stop is Washington. After a Week 17 win for the Washington football team that clinched Chase Young and the team a playoff matchup with Tampa Bay, Young was seen and heard running off the field saying this.
Tom Brady, I'm coming. I want Tom.
All right, so he said that. That, of course, got a lot of attention this week. And so yesterday, Brady was asked directly about it. Here's what he said.
He's obviously a great young player. So, we got our hands full with that D-line, one of the best D-lines in the league. So Chase is a great young player. He went to Ohio State, so naturally that thing, the Ohio State-Michigan thing wears off on him a little bit. I understand that. We're prepared for, a tough challenge. Should be a fun game.
And Tom Brady, you think I'm not going to be excited to play against the GOAT? Then you tripping. And that is what it is. I'm excited to play against Big Tom. I'm not, I'm not going to apologize for saying I want Tom, no.
All right, so let me come to my offensive lineman in this group, Damian Woody, because, Tom Brady will stand up there publicly and kind of downplay it. But how will the O-line take hearing Chase Young say, oh, yeah, I'm coming after Brady?
Oh, man, Greeny, we take a lot of pride in that, man. The young buck out here talking a lot of trash, to the GOAT and Tom Brady. So, those boys along the front, they got their hands full this time, because we know the Washington football team got 4 first-round picks along that defensive line, but those guys are a powerful unit. They're going to get after those guys.
Domonique, so what do you think? I've been looking at this. I've been looking at the way that the Washington football team can get after the quarterback. Young is not the only first-round pick, far from it, on that defensive line. I look at the way San Francisco built their team in a similar way and made a run all the way to the Super Bowl. Could Brady and the Bucs be in some trouble in this game?
Nope, absolutely not. Nope, it's not because the defense isn't good. Montez Sweat is great. Payne is great. And Chase Young, obviously great. The defense is playing exceptionally well right now, particularly towards the end of games. However, the problem is on the other side of the ball. I can't imagine a scenario where Washington is able to score enough points. I don't really see them putting up 20, 28, 35 points, which I think you're going to need to be able to knock Tom Brady off. So, especially since Alex Smith has been turning the ball over as of late, and they're probably going to end up turning to Taylor Heineke at some point in this game. And no disrespect to Taylor Heineke, but he's not going to be able to outscore Tom Brady along with all those weapons he has on offense. So, nah.
It doesn't seem that I get the Taylor Heineke part of it, but when you got a defense led by guys named Payne and Sweat, it feels to me like you at least have some semblance of a chance. Chef,
and Chase.
What are you thinking here? It's been such an interesting year for the Buccaneers, and maybe that should have been expected. But after their bye, the last 4 games, they didn't play a winning team, but they've looked much better. What sense are you getting of the confidence level coming out of Tampa?
Well, first of all, how about this, Greeny? This is the first time that Tom Brady ever is going to the playoffs as a wild card. He's never been a wild card. So we could call Tom Brady a wild card right now for this postseason, which he's never been before, which is amazing to me to think about, as long as he's played, that he's never gone in that regard. The other sense is I think that just his presence has infused this team with confidence all year long. And I think when they get to the postseason, there's probably even more confidence knowing that they've got a guy at the helm who's won 6 Super Bowl titles. Now, Mike Evans was not at practice on Tuesday or Wednesday, which is not a good sign for his availability on Saturday night. But this is exactly why they went out and signed a guy like Antonio Brown. So now you line up Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown and Scotty Miller and Rob Gronkowski, and you're still loaded even though you could be without one of your top offensive players. And so I just think that they turn to Brady and they say, show us the way. I know you've never been to the wild card round, but we've never been to the playoffs, period. So take us to the promised land.
Yeah, and we'll get through some of those injuries in just a moment. So, Nick, let me spin it the other direction then. You're very unenthusiastic about Washington's chances. Let's switch it to the other side. How about the Buccaneers as the team with the best chance to go into Lambeau Field and knock Aaron Rodgers out of these playoffs? Do you think Tom Brady has a potentially another Super Bowl run in him?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't bet on the Bucs versus the field, but I do think they have a chance. I think they are probably most likely team to be able to go in to Lambeau and win up there because he can score with Aaron Rodgers potentially, and we saw what happened. Though it was in Tampa, we saw what happened when those teams played earlier. The Buccaneers blew out the Packers, and I don't think that that's kind of descriptive of how different they are as teams, but it shows that they have the talent to compete with them. And I know the weather's going to be a little bit different. It's probably going to be a lot colder up in Lambeau at this time of year, but I don't think that's enough to slow down Tom Brady and that defense that is playing pretty well at this point.
Depending on how this weekend's games go, that could happen next week. We could be looking next weekend at that matchup between Brady and Rodgers in Lambeau, but there's a long way to go before we get to that. Meanwhile, Shefty, let's run the hurry up here through some injury situations starting in L.A. What is the latest with Jared Goff?
He was at practice yesterday, Green. He was throwing the football, which is a good sign. Now, the Rams head coach Sean McVay is not ready to say that he's going to start over the financial analyst John Wolford, but again, it's a good sign that Goff was out there throwing the football about 10 days after he underwent thumb surgery with an injury that would sideline players usually a lot longer time than that. They may take this up Saturday before making a decision. Cooper Kupp, the wide receiver for the Rams, was activated off the reserve COVID list. He is expected to be out there on Saturday against the Seahawks in a game the Rams will have to have him really to keep up with Seattle and to try to win in Seattle against a tough Seahawks team. But Cooper Kupp is expected to play, as is Michael Brockers, who also was on the reserve COVID list. As for Mike Evans, who we mentioned earlier in the show, not spotted at practice Tuesday, not spotted at practice Wednesday. That's not a good sign with that left knee injury in terms of his availability for Saturday night. Again, that short week probably doesn't help the situation any, with Tampa playing on the Saturday night after he went down on this play Sunday with the injury. We'll see if somehow Mike Evans can find his way back. I think that they feel fortunate, frankly, that his season didn't end. He's day-to-day, but it doesn't look promising for him this weekend.
All right, fair enough. So those are the teams that are still playing. Now let's get to the ones that are not in this dance and are looking for a new coach. How would you give us the latest on the coaching carousel that is swirling? 6 openings out there. What are the most important things fans should know?
Well, I think right now you're looking at Eric Bieniemy. He has actually interviewed with every team with a head coach opening other than the Houston Texans. They are the only team with an opening at that spot that have not interviewed Eric Bieniemy. And I can tell you this, that people around the league have noticed. They thought it odd that there could be so much interest in Eric Bieniemy, but there wouldn't be interest from the Houston Texans. And so it's a situation where that will continue to arouse curiosity, and we'll see how that goes. And by the way, Greeny, back to the Mike Evans point.
Yeah.
I got a text in between. Don't give up hope on him for Saturday night.
Ooh, this is why we allow Shefty to be on the phone while the show is on the air. I have a hard, fast rule for all these years. Only two people, Woj and Shefty, are allowed to be on the phone while we're on because they always give us up to the second information just like that. Quickly,
Am I allowed to answer the phone if my wife's calling, to go out and go get milk and eggs or something like that too, Greeny?
Who am I to say no? I mean, who am I to say no to that? That's just obviously not within the list. Very quickly, people have a close eye on the college stuff. The smoke, there's fire on the Urban Meyer thing. Is that continued to be something out there we're keeping a close eye on?
Absolutely. I think that should be monitored. I think that Jacksonville is waiting to see whether Urban Meyer is willing to move forward and move ahead with an NFL opportunity. I think that other teams have also reached out to Urban Meyer, and we'll see what he ultimately decides to do. I can tell you that I believe he's absolutely pondering about whether to make the move to the NFL level at this time, and we'll see whether those meetings occur. Wouldn't surprise me if they do.
All right, Shefty will continue on his phone for the next hour and 40 minutes. I guarantee you.